Welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. I'm your host, Christine Devlin Eck. Here at the Center for Sacred Window Studies, we explore and expand on conscious postpartum care. We navigate the overlap of caring for others and caring for ourselves. We honor the transitions, not only in giving birth, but in being alive. Welcome to the conversation.
And I will never be the same again.
Okay, welcome. This is such a special morning for me. I get to be in person with my beautiful friend, Corinne Andrews, who's been a part of this community for a few years now. Corinne is one of our guest instructors. She has taught at the Sacred Window Retreat. So nice to see a couple of you who were there with us. Corinne and I were sort of destined to work together, I think. And we met many years ago, but then really our paths crossed multiple times. And so to be able to sit in person with this large, wide community that is really all over, we represent so many different parts of the country and the world. So to be in physical space together while we get to engage with our wide community is such a satisfying thing for me. So today we're really going to be talking about prenatal yoga, postnatal yoga, but how it widens out to the Ayurvedic postpartum caregiving that we're doing. I'm so interested in finding ways that we can develop our businesses in ways that are actually meeting people where they're going on each stage of this journey. There's something about not isolating the sacred window in our own professional work. Like what happens when we're actually engaging with people on multiple spots of their journey, and how does that create just a stronger, more flowing engagement with clients. So that is really my intention, and that's what's really resonated with me as we've started to work together. I do want to take a second and just share a little bit about your background, and also just let you continue to introduce yourself. Corinne has been a yoga studio founder for many years. A couple different sort of incarnations of your studio. But you've always been really drawn to the birth field. And so a few years ago when you contacted me and were like, I feel called to do this postpartum work, it's such a natural fit in. But
right, because I was more in the spectrum of conception and fertility support, prenatal or pregnancy and birth, but I didn't really do much around postpartum until it clicked of postpartum is the rest of your life.
yes,
it's so, when people say, like I would always say to students, I still do, that you have your first year postpartum, but then you have your first 3 years and your first 5 years. And in a way, you're just in different stages of postpartum. If you're a mother, and that's been my experience because now my kids are older. They're 15 and 19. So it's like it hit me how important the postpartum work is. But then this bridge of you can't have it in its fullness without linking it to all that came before.
right. It's this beautiful piece.
And bugs, I'm sorry.
I can see it in my vision. But Corinne, I hope that you'll all look up Birthing Mama, which is a book that was based on this course that Corinne created many years ago, kind of based, I feel like it's so much like your own story has really launched the Birthing Mama program. Exactly. And now it's a book. And so her program is something that we are hosting within the Sacred Window. I guess our community and our student community has the opportunity to combine programs with the prenatal and postnatal yoga and wellness, as well as if you are already a student or an alum, you can take that individually. But today's event is really about just looking at the possibility for what prenatal and postnatal yoga can look like for people who are in the field of postpartum care and working with new families, and how we can create just a beautiful opportunity. It's so much more than just, a movement class, a yoga class to like take care of some discomfort. And we'll get into that. But in terms of all of your engagement here today, please feel free to raise your hand if questions arise. We will leave some space towards the end so that we can really address things that have come up for each of you, and some sharing of your own experiences. And then we'll close together. But thank you all again for being here. And maybe I'll turn it over for you. Do you want to guide us in a little welcome centering?
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great. So, should I wear it, or you hear us? You hear us both well? Thumbs up. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's take a moment just to find a seat that's comfortable. And something that's really important to me is that, and I'm just going to tilt this down. I don't know if you can see, but both Christine and I are sitting up on supports. So we always want the earth to hold us. When we're looking at the experience of embodying yoga, it's really about unity. So it's the union with our deepest self. It's the union with all living beings, including our beloved Mother Earth. It's the union with each other. And so everything we do matters. Everything we do invites the consciousness of that unity, or it invites a sort of separation. So when you sit up on enough cushion or blanket or block or chair, bench, whatever it may be, you're saying this statement of, I will receive support. I will welcome the love of Mother Earth up into me to hold me. So it's so important. And especially as we're going through fertility and conception, pregnancy, birth, and whatever journey the parenting journey is for you. So take that moment to take your time. And once you come to a seat, just look and see. And I'm going to again just tilt this down. So what can happen is we can tilt back into a kind of a collapse, right? Or we can roll forward into this kind of, oh, I've got this. I'm going to prop myself up. And somewhere in the middle is truth, right? If we can sit straight down in the center of each side sitting bone and just feel ourselves root to the earth, that's the center. And in the center is really where we find truth, the center of our breath, the center of a moment. So finding what that is for you, you might need to roll back a little or forward a little, anterior, posterior, and then feel where's the center. And if you'd like, close your eyes or let your gaze stay open at one single point. And whether your eyes are closed or open, taking your gaze at one single point is important because it offers a loving devotional commitment to something, right? A single point, eyes open or closed. And then let your awareness travel into your womb, your roominess of your womminess, or sometimes I like to call the Zoom room, the zoomy roomy, or the zoomy woomy. I get really corny, but in a serious way, find your whatever you would call your womb, or the space of your womb, your uterus, and just bring your awareness there. And if it's useful for you, you can bring your hands to touch and take a moment just to simply both ground the center of your sitting bones down and take a little pulse up through your perineum and let it travel up into your uterus, your womb, whatever you like to name this space. And see if you could just gently hug your uterus into you. Even if you've had your uterus removed, the energy body of it is there. So take a moment to let not just your awareness, but your breath move down into your pelvic floor, the earth, back up into your pelvic floor, and your uterus, whatever's happening in there in this moment. Maybe you're bleeding, maybe you are trying to conceive, maybe you are pregnant, maybe you're ovulating, maybe it's perimenopause, maybe it's postmenopause, whatever it may be. There's a lot that goes on in this space of our body. And take a moment just to let your breath deepen, like an invitation. When you invite your sweet friend, you know, when Christine walked in the door, I actually felt like I was going to cry that we were here in this physical space together. That feeling when someone you love and respect walks in, you've invited them in, and there's this sense of joy and love and almost a little bit of emotion. See if you can find that with your breath. Your breath is this beloved, sweet friend that brings you closer to yourself, to the moment, to what is most true. Your breath is this bridge that not only takes you to the depth of your own soul, but to this greater spirit, whatever you want to call the divine mother or the one or God or goddess, whatever name. So just a few rounds here of deepening your breath. I'm just going to take my hands to Christine's back just to invite a little bit of awareness into back lungs, because we often breathe front lungs or top lungs, especially if we are pregnant and our bellies are getting bigger and bigger, we can run out of space. So just a slowing down, maybe opening your jaw, releasing your tongue. And if you could imagine that there were loving hands just resting on your back, how could you send the air right into the back of your lungs, the back of your heart? Yes, that's it. So there's a lot to pay attention to. Dharana, this loving, gentle concentration on so many different things, which is really the path of parenthood. We are constantly paying attention to so many different things. And how do we do it with grace? How do we do it with ease? How do we do it with a sense of what I like to call the divine mother or divine love or consciousness moving us so that we feel held? So maybe just 3 more breaths in this way. And as you're breathing, you're noticing again your uterus, the space of your womb, maybe yielding it into you a little sweetly. Underneath that, your perineum rises just a bit, like a pulsation, mula bandha, so that there's a bit of a container to hold you and support you. And I'd love for us to just chant together 3 times the sacred sound of Om, and then we'll do 3 Ma Om. And I'm going to turn on original sound. I think I know how to do it on your computer. Do I? I know how to do it on mine. Oh, maybe on mine it shows up there. It's okay if we can't do it. If we note to people who are teaching on Zoom, when you're chanting, especially Om, you'll want to turn on original sound because, you know, it muffles it. It's okay. We'll still hear and feel each other. So keeping your hands either both on your uterus or maybe one to your heart and one stays down low, just to connect deep, low belly, earth and water, and then heart and air and compassion and love. So when you're ready, exhale. First, the condense, just like a baby gets squeezed first before they then come out and have their big first inhale. So we do the same. We exhale, condense, and then inhaling. notice how the sound feels, the vibration where it goes. We know that in birth, sounding is so helpful, but I recommend starting the sounding even before you conceive, right? Just like we're talking about this continuation of care, that it doesn't just begin in the postpartum time. So the sounding needs to begin while you're trying to conceive, and hopefully many years even before that. And the sounding continues. I know sometimes the only way I could get babies to stop crying, especially in the postnatal yoga classes or the parent and baby yoga classes, every time the room starts with the tears, we just start chanting Om, and it's silent. It's amazing. Even in zoo baby yoga, it's magic. So we're just going to do one more chant, very simple. This time it's Ma Om. So it's a long ma, and it's a calling out to the great mother or the divine feminine or the divine mother, whatever name you like to call her, that Mahashakti, the great, the grand, the big Shakti, which is creative power. I also like to chant Ma Om because there's this piece in the Rig Veda which talks about Hiranya Garbhaya, which is the golden womb that then birthed the creation of Om. It's so beautiful. Anyway, I can go on and on about all these things. So, but the mother created Om. We always think Om is the first, and it is, but she came through, right? Her golden egg, the Hiranya Garbhaya. Garbha is womb. So here we go. Exhale and inhale. And as you're ready, you can just gently open your eyes if they're still closed. You can release your hands unless it feels good. Sometimes the touch just wants to stay there forever. So
That was so beautiful. I feel
Yeah.
really, really enlivened because of that.
Yeah.
I would love to have you share a little bit with me about the feel of being in a class with, whether it's prenatal or postnatal, it's a community gathering. It's
Yes.
community coming together.
Yeah.
And I want to see the picture of it.
Yeah, that's such a good question. Yeah, hi. I know it's such a funny thing to talk to you and our friends here. So yeah, it makes me emotional actually, because teaching both prenatal and postnatal yoga has been one of the most sacred ways that I've engaged in the sharing of this thing that is my path. Yoga is really a path for me. It's a set of practices, but it's a path that I'm really just devoted to fully in my life. And it's been many, many years. So it's been about, when did I start? It's like 18 years maybe. And what happens is, first of all, it's about crossing a threshold. So I'll start with prenatal, but prenatal was also people, or is also people who are conceiving. At a certain point of teaching prenatal yoga, I opened it publicly and publicly said, if you're trying to conceive, this is also a space for you.
I love that.
Because then, how when people are bleeding, we catch it from each other.
Yeah.
I thought, well, maybe we'll catch pregnancy from each other. You're trying, and I actually did catch pregnancy. I was not planning to get pregnant when I was 25, and I caught it from one of my best friends. For
Wow.
real. Yeah. I blame her. And I conceived on her birthday.
Oh my gosh.
Accidentally, So anyway, there's a crossing of a threshold where you say to people, we're going to pause from the chaos of life, even though we're going to embrace the chaos of life, but we're going to cross a threshold and we're going to create a circle together where we're going to be, where you will be seen and heard and held and honored and offered to, and get to be raw and real, but also elevate yourself. You know, because there's this way where we can become over emotional and we forget to elevate ourselves. So my hope is that we do both. Honor what's real and raw and emotional, because it is, when we're going through any stage of bleeding or ovulating or pregnancy or birth or parenting. But then also, how do we not get lost in the emotionality and the, you know, this constant swirl of thought, and also elevate ourselves, because we are meant to awaken on planet Earth, you know, like shift consciousness by changing the way we do pregnancy and birth and parenthood. So I'm starting with that because that's really how it starts. It's like the minute you walk in the door, you're held in a womb of love, you know, and whether it's a candle or a vibration or music or silence. And then we start with a sharing circle. And, you know, there's a whole rhythm of how you go through the class. I mean, how detailed do you want me to get here? Because, you know, I can just start going.
Yeah, no, just, yeah, you're doing great. I mean,
Okay.
the picture of it is like, I'm following you. I'm seeing
Yeah.
people come in, and I think to your point of what you said, something really stuck to me, because there's so many places in life that we're just holding it together, that we're
Yeah.
like, I'm fine, everything's fine, we're doing life, we're doing this thing, we're doing this, but the transformation, the healing, the actual meaning, the potency of being a human and having a human experience comes when we get to be vulnerable and also show our vulnerability.
Yeah.
And so this is a community space that I'm like, I have goosebumps that you opened it up to people who are trying to conceive, because there's that recognition that you don't have to have like crossed this step before you're qualified to like come here. It's anybody on that stage of this huge window. But it's something about it. Like, I've been to so many yoga classes and I love them, but this is a different type of experience.
Yeah, it is. And to your point of this openness, I'm super into like rawness and vulnerability, like, you know, get naked, lay it all on the kitchen table. And so I invite that in by, you know, I demonstrate it, I offer, not oversharing of my own personal, but by like making it known that this is welcome, like the real rawness. So I mean, the experiences I've had with hundreds of people over all these years, I mean, it is so moving what I've witnessed, because people come in with so much. And then, and not only then, you know, and they all want you to be their birth doula, right? Because they're going through their pregnancy with you. They're sharing everything. We're literally sharing everything. And then they want you at their birth, and then they all come to the postnatal yoga class, and they're a community, you know, like I have my deep relationship with them, but then they have I've seen families go through and they're still friends, you know, and because like I said, I've been doing this since my kids were babies and they're old now. So I see them on, they're like still friends, you know, or I'll meet someone on the street and her kid's now like 10 or 11. And she's like, I'm still friends with that same cohort. We've done it all. So this word that you once said, Christine, the continuity.
Continuity.
You
got it.
Continuity. The continuity of care, the village, you know, they're like, yeah, this is a class where you're going to learn postures and mantras. We're going to chant. We're going to do all these great physical practices and breathing practices and chanting and therapeutics, but it is a way of life and a way of consciousness and a way of starting at the beginning, which really, I think it needs to begin the moment we are having our first bleed. You know, I had a welcoming ceremony with my daughter, and it was really important. Whatever you do, you know, with a bleeding person, but that continuity of care until we die, really, you know? So I think that's such an important piece. And that's something that's one of the reasons I'm really excited about the Birthing Mama teacher training, moving into the house with you is because I really see it as one big full circle, like from birth to death, really. So, yeah.
I love that. And I feel like I've felt that too, because I led new parent circles or new mom circles for a long time. And it was like the people, when they connected there on that common experience level, like I'm going through this thing and sometimes it's really messy and hard, but like I can say my truth here.
Yes.
The friends that you make and the connections that you make leave such an imprint on how you remember that period of time.
Yes. Yeah.
And so all of this is just so, so beautiful. Thank you for painting that picture.
Yeah.
And I know that Shelly Rahim, who's on this call, she and I did a recent episode. Shelly also is a prenatal yoga teacher, and it very easily and naturally flowed into her becoming a doula, because, as Corinne was saying, they trust you and they know you, and you already know all these things about them, and you have seen them as they are. And above anything else, above our qualifications, above our experience, above our training, above all of it, it's a trust and a human connection.
Right.
That is where that's what you need when you're going through something vulnerable.
Exactly.
It's got to be somebody that you can
trust.
Yeah.
And the love, like, the love is there, that you're held. It's so important.
Yeah. So I would love for, if any of you have thoughts or experiences that have come up as you've been listening, to please share in the chat.
Say one more thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, but just one quick thing. Another thing I really love is in the prenatal yoga classes themselves, or in separate workshops I would do, because there's a whole bunch of things you could do: the weekly classes, workshops preparing for birth, workshops preparing for postpartum time. But I love it because so many people don't know the importance of postpartum care. This is, a thing that I hear a lot in this community, is people just don't get it, how important it is. And you have you have weekly opportunities to educate people about how important it is. So I would be, throwing in these tidbits every class, something, always a little tidbit that would help them with this thing that they were complaining about this week. And then I throw in a tidbit about something that can support them during the labor and birth. And then we'd have even sometimes homework assignments about what are you going to do to plan for your postpartum. So there's so many opportunities for education or extra workshops, or, things that you can do while they're pregnant, or before, if you're lucky enough to get to them before, hopefully. Because I think that's missing. People don't know.
Yeah. And we talk about that a lot in our program. And those of you who have been in it, you'll probably remember, so much of our work as postpartum care providers is education.
Exactly.
Because we're not yet at the place where postpartum care is as common as birth doula care.
Exactly.
We're not yet at that place where there's a balance or an awareness, or a built-in, okay, what's our plan?
Exactly.
So this is a really important piece of what we have to do anyway. And when we're already connected and meeting with people and traveling with them on this part of the journey, it's like a golden opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah. So sorry, I just wanted to say that because
No,
it's such an
really
important piece. Yeah.
Well, I want to, so if anybody has anything to chime in now, that's great. Also, what's next? What do we need to move into next for,
Well, I mean, I'm always curious because I'm such a relational being. I am curious. I know a lot of you are catching the recording, but there's enough of you here. I'm so passionate. I have so much to share and teach, and we're going to send you 2 articles that are in the big manual for the 90-hour prenatal and postnatal yoga and wellness teacher training. We'll send you those just with the recording. But I guess I'm curious, is there anything that you're specifically interested in, or you have a question about? Do you want to see an example of how we bring in, pelvic floor? And I did a little bit in our beginning breathing and centering, a little bit of pelvic floor toning, and, hug a little bit in through your uterus, but what's alive for you, because again, this is all about relationship, and this is all about sharing love and unity, if we really take yoga seriously. So yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to chime in about what's important to you, or what you're curious about, what you're interested in. And if not, I have lots to keep going with, but yeah.
Shelley,
Don't
go
be
ahead.
shy.
Do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, hi, Corinne. I'm just I guess I can probably just let my video come on.
Yeah, please.
I just got out of the shower and I'm kind of like, oh. Thank you for your beautiful meditation and sharing your journey of this work. It's amazing. It's very similar to how I practice, how I teach prenatal yoga. So I combine birthing from within type, like I'm almost like a Socratic seminar type dialogue in the beginning of every class, where I have a theme and a very specific topic related to birth or postpartum or motherhood journey. And then everybody kind of shares, and and then I take that theme into the movement and the meditation, and it's woven throughout. We embody it, we move it and breathe it.
Yeah,
So something
exactly.
that I'm curious about, we do hold that space for sharing and for being vulnerable. And so we have, of course, I have a lot of moms in my class that are on, pregnant with their second or third or fourth babies. And so it's great when they share. So we all learn, if I have a specific topic, like how do you, like learning how to let go of control? Maybe that's my theme, right?
That's a good one.
It's a really good one. So then, the moms who have been through it, right? Like they share from their personal experience. And so my question for you is, well, before I ask the question, I want to say that I also get moved to tears, just like you're saying, that like we're coming together in this way that women have come together since the beginning of time, to learn from each other face to face, to be in the presence of other mothers who've gone through it and hear their journey in a way that's safe. It's not just like people, regurgitating their birth trauma. It's like a safe, held space. And we're learning how they were strong. We're learning how they found the ability to surrender, to let go, or whatever it is. We're inspiring each other. But something that has been a challenge for me, I've been teaching for 18 years as well. And yeah, it's so similar. But something that was a challenge for me is, in the beginning, it was really hard because it's also a very healing space. So those moms who have birth trauma, you can feel that's what's coming out, right? And so trying to, how do we navigate that? I'm curious how you've navigated keeping the container safe, while also allowing for people to have those healing experiences.
Yeah, that is thankful. First of all, thank you. I love what you just shared. And yeah, it sounds like we've been walking a parallel path, which is so beautiful across the country, but they're together. Yeah, so one thing, well, I guess let me just start by saying that in the training that I teach, we have a section on holding space for loss. And I think it's really important that people get training in some level of trauma, loss, death, and grief. You cannot have birth without death. And even if everything happens exactly the way you want it to, it's like, meaning there isn't an actual physical death. So I'm taking this a little bit bigger than what you're asking, because, and the reason I'm saying this is because, and you may have experienced this yourself, but I have experienced everything. I've experienced someone coming to class and saying, I just found out my baby is no longer has a heartbeat at 25 weeks, and I'm going to have to terminate the pregnancy, but I needed to come here and be with you all. We've had maternal death, we've had stillbirth, we've had everything. So from traumas, all of birth in a way is a trauma. Even if we've had the best birth, it's traumatic. So I've seen everything from, I don't want to call it smaller or bigger traumas. Trauma is trauma, but I've seen it all. And what I've done is I've made it, I've invited a space where I think maybe because I keep this, I don't know how to say it exactly, but I keep this space of you get to be real and you get to come here with what's absolutely real, and it's not all there is. Like I really hold the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. I mean, the physical too, but obviously the physical is a little more obvious. I never leave out the spiritual. And I also don't, I'm not interested in spiritual bypass.
Yeah.
So I tend to like really, I guess right now I'm thinking specifically the memory that's or like, we had a mama, another one who lost her baby. And then 2 years later, a surrogate was carrying and she wanted, again, it all moves me to tears. This mother wanted the surrogate to take my class because she wanted her baby to be
Oh,
in the class with me, even though she herself wasn't carrying. And then they all came and took the class. And I mean, it's just sometimes I'm like, I need to write a book of what I've seen. I'm sure you feel the same. It's like, so I guess if in summary, what I would say is let there be a space for everything to be and then bring it back. It's like a skill that we learn through, we can be trained in how to do it. I mean, definitely my trainings on grief and loss and death have helped me for sure. But there's like a steadiness in us as teachers or facilitators or, holding the circle where we have to have the ability to say, lay it all out, bring me your tears, bring me your pain, bring me your grief, and I'm not going to hold it up here. I'm going to hold it in here, and I'm going to learn how to be so compassionate and companion with you. But I'm not going to do it just for my emotional heart. I'm going to do it for my spiritual heart, because our human hearts like can't hold it all. We just, but our spiritual hearts can, the hridaya, that spiritual heart. So I would always bring it back. It might mean like this one time when the mama came and said, I found out there's no heartbeat and I'm going to have to terminate. This was happening during the sharing circle. I let the sharing circle go on longer that day.
mhm.
And then I said to everyone, I was very honest. I said, okay, listen, this is huge. We needed to make space for this. And I want to continue this after class for anyone who wants to stay, because people became afraid. It also brought up fears. So
Mhm.
it's like I spoke to everything that I knew might be because of what was happening in the sharing circle. And this does happen quite a bit,
Yeah.
people get triggered all the time in sharing circles. So I try to like really say this is real and this is painful. And then I bring it back to a teaching from the yoga tradition. Again, not to bypass, but to like bring it back to yoga. And what can we know about this spiritually, or how can we bring it into the larger picture? You can't tell someone to know the spiritual reality. They have to be ready and they have to feel it. But if I embody it myself, there's a vibration that comes through.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so you have to have the ability to set the boundary and make a container that does both, lets the emotions be here, but ties it back into the depth of really like what we all know inside. That even in suffering, even in death, even in loss, the Divine Mother's still right here. Like it's not like we're outside of God now, you know? I don't know if that answers it. I have so much to say about that topic.
Yeah. That was beautiful. Really beautiful. And I do feel like it takes a lot of our own personal growth, our own inner work, or working on our own trauma, working on our own um, ability to hold space for everything. It's a skill that took a long time for me to develop. So those first times it happened back, many, many years ago, and the woman's crying and she's sharing her birth story and she's taking up a lot of space and time. And I remember feeling so scared, like, oh my God, shoot, I'm scaring all these moms. I don't know what to do. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to stop her because she's, and there's all these things, right? And then eventually I did a lot of processing after that would happen. And now, yeah, now I I do something very similar to what you do. And I've had this knowingness of the potential here and how to ground it so that it's medicine for everybody. And in that confidence and that space holding, that's where that's where it can be contained and used as medicine in the person who's holding that space. So I love how you spoke to it. I too have had every scenario which you have mentioned unfold in my classes as well. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And you will if you stay in this work
Yes.
long. And just to say too, to what you were saying at the beginning, yeah, at the beginning I had no clue either, you know, and it was like, oh my gosh. And I want to say it is okay to stop someone. I have stopped people, you know, and you
Yep.
probably have too. Like there have been some times where I've said, you know, you have so much to share and we want to hear it. Let's hang out 10 minutes after class tonight, or let's have like a tea Zoom call and continue, because I just want to make sure there's enough time and space for everyone. And I know you all have some backache and I know you want to move a little, you know, and I also say this too. I know that there can be fear. I will point blank say, you might be feeling fear, not to make the person feel bad, just to be, again, real. That fear will arise when we hear traumatic stories, and that's okay. You know, that there's nothing wrong with you, or there's nothing wrong with anybody. And how do we, you know, yeah, so.
Thank you, Shelley, so much for bringing that up. And I think that that's such a valuable piece, whatever type of community gathering we're hosting, whether
Yeah.
it's just a support circle, not just a support circle, like support circles are just incredible,
Yeah.
or if it's a yoga class.
Yeah.
And also there's something, again, with like coming back to real potency happens when we're vulnerable. That applies to the instructor too. Like
Yes.
we
Yeah.
get permission to not know everything.
Right.
We're on this human journey along with the people who are coming to be supported. Like we're able to learn along the way, and that is essential and okay.
The first yoga teacher training I ever took, the motto was teach to learn. And I keep that in, I teach a 200-hour, 300-hour, and the 90-hour prenatal. And I borrowed Baba Haridas's teach to learn, and I added, so I say teach to learn from love, for love, with love, out of love, to love, like just to learn about love, divine love, human love, animal, all of it, you know? Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, you don't need to be perfect. I am not perfect. None of us are. That's not. Maybe someday we'll all be completely enlightened and perfect, but
that's where we're going.
it is where we're going.
Reason.
We are going there. I mean, I do think we're going there. And in the meanwhile, we get to be real and honest.
Yeah.
You know, of like, oh, I don't know how to handle this right now. And then, oh my gosh, I have this whole community of colleagues, and I can call my sister and be like, hey, this happened in this moment of this person's postpartum. I don't know what to do. And your sister knows, you know, and reminds you also of what you know. Like I heard even in Shelley's sharing, she actually knew the answer to the question she was asking, you know, and it was more like, let's share about it together, to hear you, to see you, to let me be heard and seen, because she knew, she has the same experience. So we often just reflect to each other what we already know.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. And that's like a whole other piece that we're getting into very soon with, the sacred window circles that we're starting to talk about, where we're not isolated and we're not alone, and we are really celebrating the community aspect of it for caregivers as well as for people going through the childbearing year and beyond.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what makes sense for you? Do you want to kind of guide people through some specifics and kind of, I'm your body?
Yeah. I mean, and anybody else, was there, we could do a shorter one last something before we do a little experiential, if anybody wants to ask or say something, or even like put it in the chat if you don't want to unmute.
I was wondering what your postpartum clients would most frequently come to your classes for, in regards to how their body is feeling and what they're working on. I think obviously working on the pelvic floor is probably a really big one, and then maybe like sore back or tension in the shoulders, but I was wondering if you could speak to that, like what your postpartum clients are coming to you specifically for in those days.
Yeah. So one of the articles you're going to get is here. I'm going to actually wear this because I'm going to blend the answer to, I can show. And if you want to experience, I'm a big fan of like, do it with me, don't just like look or listen with ears and mind, like feel it, breathe it, experience it. One of the packets that you're getting is I think we call it like key components of a postnatal yoga class, and it covers all the main hot spots, you could say. And that's everything from feeling isolated, alone, depressed, anxious, to the hunch, to pelvic floor, to belly, to breasts. So I have like it separated out into little topics like that. But okay, so let's give an example. Let me move this back a little. Maybe only because we'd have to really move it to get you standing, but let's have you sit, Christine, and just face them and come sit. So one of the things, actually, no, I'm going to bring it forward because I'm not going to have you stand right now. So in general, there's a few main things that we're looking for. And I'm going to talk about postpartum in the sense of bonding with baby is another category in it. But for right now, just to answer what you were asking, what your name is, Elizabeth. Okay. Thank you for the question. So one thing, I'm going to talk physical first, because I think you all know the emotional, again, anxiety, depression, isolation, exhaustion. So I like to tend to all of those things in a postpartum yoga class. It also starts with a sharing circle, just like the prenatal. And in the sharing circle, whatever I hear people talk about, I'm going to cater to that. Whatever and again, there'll still be general things. So one very simple thing might be she can't even breathe right now because she's overwhelmed with trying to breastfeed. And then now there's a poopy diaper, and now like there's dinner on the stove. So first, it's just this, and I brought awareness to back, lungs. And that's an invitation to come back into yourself, because what happens in the pregnancy and postpartum time is we go out and we have to learn to come back in. So a few things. One is alignment. If we look at alignment with breath and with literally how we're lined up, it makes a huge difference in how our low back feels, how our shoulders feel, how our breath is flowing, how we're able to think clearly or not. So very simple here, just like we were doing in the beginning, I'm looking whether she's sitting or on hands and knees or standing, what's the alignment? Is her pelvis neutral? Because if she's always stuck in anterior, posterior, that's going to affect everything above and below. We're going to also talk about the pit of the belly, gently, which is an energetic seed. It's known as the pit of the belly or the primitive knot in embryology, and it's the khandha in the yoga tradition. But it's an energetic seed in your low, deep pelvic belly in front of your sacrum. And we're going to work on bringing that in and up, which you can try in your body right now. Just this, and it's the top of Mula Bandha, really. So we're going to bring back in Mula Bandha. We're going to do all kinds of like warriors and lunges, to help retone pelvic floor. And then let's say, for example, I'm kind of going in a spiralic way right now. I'm kind of jumping around, but we're talking about alignment with breath. We're talking about alignment with posture. We're talking about different practices to tone the pelvic floor. And I'm not going right into abdominal toning in early postpartum. First of all, you want to even wait, depending on what kind of birth, it could be anywhere between like 2 and 8 weeks. 2 is very early, but I invite people to come the minute they want company. Like sometimes someone will come to class and they really physically are not ready to do anything, but they need to be. I've had so many people say, I'm coming because I need to hear you talk about these things, and I need to breathe, and I need to see my people who get it. And it's amazing, and they get so much out of it. So let's say, for example, we have the hunch going on. which is like a little collapse through here. Not that I want you to collapse, but we've got the collapse in the thoracic spine here. This is not just about, this isn't like, okay, now push forward and fix something. This is about everything I'm talking about, the alignment of neutral pelvis, neutral curves of spine, the belly pit being engaged, the mula bandha, which again, belly pit is the top. When we talk about abdominal toning, we need to go not just to the rectus abdominis in the front, we need to go to all the muscles, but we also need to go to the psoas. We need to go to the psoas major. We need to go even to the stem of the breathing diaphragm because we've been pushing like this our whole life. We need to come back to the stem of the breathing diaphragm rooting, so there's so many different practices, but these are the kinds of things. And then what I wanted to show was how we might do something so simple, but look at all these things in it. So if Christine, if you will just take a moment, and as you inhale, invite your skull to reach up towards my hand, but at the same time, and maybe with your exhale, invite your brain to rest down. And I'm going to actually take another hand, and you don't have to have your hands all over everybody. You can't. I would be like holding babies and trying to touch mama or papa and trying to demo something. I mean, you don't have to do all that, you can't and you won't. But for now, because I have just one person. So this reminder to inhale into the back of your lungs and exhale, ground down into earth. And then find the pulsation up through Mula Bandha, belly pit in and up, gently gathering the tissues of your navel belly in towards you and spreading them wide because they're used to being all out here. So we talk about navel yield. And then when you're ready, let an exhale bring you into just a simple spiral. You can spin to your right first. And, if it's a postpartum class with babies, we will often have a baby on the right breast if you're spinning to the right, or we will have a baby. I incorporate babies into what we're doing. So here we're inviting breath to be moving through all parts of lungs. We're inviting, even though it's a spiral, how do you keep length in your spine? How do you avoid tilting or tucking your pelvis? And then when you're ready, you can let yourself unspin. And then you check in again, like, do I have the pit of my belly or did it fall out? Do I have a sense of, like an umbrella doming up through my pelvic floor, or did it collapse and spill out? And then just for fun to go to the other side, when you're ready, inhale, make space vertically, and exhale, spin. So so the shoulder hunch, the low back, hips, breasts. I mean, literally everything hurts in postpartum and you're exhausted. So you'll see in this article we send to you. And what the one article that we didn't get ready to send to you all, but that is in the manual, is a whole bunch of possible ailments you'll see in not ailments, that's the wrong word, possible discomforts that you'll see in pregnancy and postpartum, and different remedies or offerings or soothers. So again, we're just looking at, can Christine find this wide space in the front, in the back, but is this everything in the heart area, in her heart space and in her spine, is it supported by underneath, And it's not a pulling of your belly. It's these undulating waves of soft tissues that come in and spread wide. It's a whole teaching unto itself. But I mean, even joints hurt, when you're ready, you can unspin. So we try to also just do some simple movement with breath. Like you might even just right now, inhale, float out, open and up, and exhale, float down, just to see what does it feel like to move with your breath. So some very simple, basic things. But then, your posture and alignment is so beautiful, but I wouldn't normally see it like this in the postpartum time. Christine's doing pretty well here. She's pretty aware. So even just somebody who's reaching out, opening up, they're like, oh my God, I mean, remember, you've had quite your own journey with all your babies.
Yeah, I remember like, a few weeks after birth, like trying to just do a forward fold. And
Yeah,
like
yeah.
realizing, oh my gosh, I can barely touch
Yeah.
my shins.
Yeah.
When normally I'd be able to touch my toes.
Yeah. And we don't want you to try to I mean, there's still a lot of relaxin in postpartum. There's an overemphasis in our world about opening and flexibility. And I actually think that's kind of dangerous. I think we need a lot of containment and stability and strength and tone, not just physically, but spiritually. And I think it's missing a little bit. So, yes, you want to open and release and feel good. And we put plenty of that in, but your body just got like ripped open after birth. We have to bring things back together.
There has
So,
to be stability.
yeah, because you
as
have the rest of
well
your
as
life.
Flexibility.
Yeah. And we really balance that, in the same way, like raising kids, if you are too open with them and they have no boundaries, that's actually scary for them. They need boundaries. So we're looking at all of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of responses here. So Emily, yeah, absolutely. So Corinne's courses are online. They're self-study, and then we're creating, ways that people can
Yeah.
kind of connect with Corinne
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
real time. I'm so glad this is resonating. And how helpful is it to take the training as a birth doula if we don't have prior yoga teacher training? That's a great question.
I have tons of people over the years who've taken, so this teacher training was just a yearly live in-person training that I did at our former studio, the first or second rendition of it maybe. And then during COVID, it went online. And then I just decided to turn one of the online ones into it's like a pre-recorded asynchronous. So over all of those years, I would say half the students are doulas and half the students are yoga teachers. It's you, and some are just pregnant and they just want to experience the training for themselves. It's also really important, speaking to your question, joints. Will you really quickly come to your hands and knees? I just want to show something. Because there's a lot of prenatal, postnatal, like arthritis kind of stuff going on. It has a lot to do with being dry, which of course, in your amazing training, we talk so much about nourishment in the Sacred Windows training, nourishment and fats and proteins. So, and oiling, Abhyanga is the best thing in the world, right? But one thing about movement, and yeah, so if you could, I want to make sure they can see you. If you can bend your elbows a little bit down towards the earth and then spread your fingers wide and actually let your wrists be a little bit forward of your shoulders. And that's not common, right? People usually place their wrists right under shoulders, but what we want to look for in something like hands and knees is a sense of being able to push from our hands through our tail and then our feet through to our head. Again, this is like a whole movement template, but what's important is that prana doesn't get stuck in joints. Prana is meant to flow earth through your body to the heavens, to your body, to the earth constantly, right? And not get caught anywhere. So this strong push of your hands down and away into the earth so that a rebound comes up your arms, goes down the front of your spine. I'm touching the back just because it's very personal to touch the front spine. And then all the way to the tail. So if you could try to just give a little push from your hands through to your tail. Yeah, you see how she gets moved back a little bit? That's because the force is going through. So this has to do, and then of course, pit of belly's coming in. And if you could push a little from your feet, shins, and knees through to your head. And this is hands to tail, feet to head, just in the table position, which of course, we're going to be careful about with the separation of the rectus abdominis. If there's a big diastasis, we might do it at the wall instead. Everyone will have some separation, but then sometimes there's a lot and we need to be more careful. Do you feel anything? What do you
It's
feel
so
here?
interesting because oftentimes like table is just kind of that neutral position where it's almost like you're just resting from other things, but
Yeah.
this is super active and not like a hard way. It feels
Yeah.
you just feel intention and purpose. And I love the way you described it of prana is an exchange between the earth and the heavens and us as like that, conduit. It's so beautiful.
Exactly. The conduit, that's the word. And that's what we are. We're conduits, And so you push hands to tail, it's a downward pointing triangle, and you push feet to head, it's an upward pointing triangle, and it makes the sacred geometrical shape of the six-pointed star in your body, which is the bringing together of heaven and earth and heaven, aspiration and surrender, what is below with what's above, birth, death, all of it. So anyway, I just wanted to show that because in every posture, in any asana you do, you would be looking for things like this. Just another example.
So beautiful.
And then you would bring it into whatever movement you're doing, with breath. So
I love that. Thank you.
yeah.
How do you, oh, Emily, Corinne is here. We're in Amherst, Massachusetts right now. Emily is Massachusetts also right now.
Oh, hi.
Renu, how do you incorporate the spiritual component to this exercise? And are folks open to this? I love that. I love that. Thank you for that question.
Yeah. So the spiritual to me, is my most favorite part of it all. It's what I think it's all about. So which exercise are you talking about? Just so I can speak clearly to it.
Yeah.
Or do you mean in
I'm
general?
interpreting it as, into the, the yoga classes themselves with people coming from potentially lots of different backgrounds and.
Right. So generally, how do you incorporate it?
Renu, correct me if I'm.
Yeah, generally, and also I think a lot of women are stuck in that Kegel era. And how do we move women beyond Kegels and get them to embody this concept that you so beautifully outline, the body, mind, and the spirit, which kind of stays with that throughout. So yeah, I would love to hear that from you. Thank you. And so lovely seeing you. Sorry, I'm not well, so not on camera. It's energetically, we're all connected. Thank you.
Totally. And I feel you and I see you. I'm picturing your beautiful face. So, and I'm sorry you're not well. You have your cushion to sit on? Good girl. And I'm getting mine too. I don't really let people sit flat on the floor ever. Okay, so there's a lot to say about what you're asking. I think I might answer it pretty simply in that speak about what you love. So any yoga class I teach, so if I'm teaching, what I call modern postural yoga, which I don't do that many, I only have now 2 drop-ins a week that are modern postural yoga classes. Because, or I don't need to go into that part, but whatever's alive for you, you will make alive for the people that are with you. So on a very simple practical level, how would you begin to incorporate the teachings of yoga or spirituality into the classes? I mean, it's very personal because I don't think that anybody in all my teacher trainings, I never tell people what they have to talk about. I don't even give you like a list because I want it to be authentic. So I would offer that you start with something that's alive for you, that you're already feeling connected to, that you're practicing. Maybe it's like it's a part of your morning prayer or mantra, something that you embody. And that's what you weave into class. What's alive for you? And then people say, oh, I don't know, I don't have the right to speak about these things. And it's like, okay, well, how about pick one Sanskrit word? Because Sanskrit is amazing. One Sanskrit word to just even try to, I mean, even the English word love, there's like 99, I say this all the time because I'm blown away by it. There's like 99 different versions of love in Sanskrit because there's all these different kinds of love, like mitra, the love of friend, your friend that's on the spiritual path with you, like you're my mitra, or karuna, compassion, the compassion of love. There's so many. So, you could break it down like that. But I think if we want to be authentic, it has to be a teaching, an awareness, an experience that you embody, that you have, that you live, or maybe one that you're learning about, you're struggling with. And then it just comes through you. Like I mean, I can give you a lot of ideas of things you could talk about, but I also, Renu, I know that this is another thing, like you're asking a question that I know she knows the answer to.
Yeah, and
You
I
know,
think it comes back to that piece of that's what we're here in
Yeah.
this life to do, is to be
Exactly.
100% authentically what we're called to be.
Yeah.
And that means that we have permission to not be everything for every person.
This is huge.
We have to be able to trust that the people who need us will find us. And of course, we're going to do what we can to share that I'm here to serve.
Yeah.
And it's okay to not be the everything for everybody.
Yeah.
It's really important to know that, that's why we're all in this field, because, the exact right person there's going to be people who know that, like, Emily is the exact right person that they need to have as their support person. And that's, there's so many people to serve. There's so many families.
Yeah.
There's so many, we're like tapping into the regenerative component of humanity here. And so there's
Yeah.
always a way. And our mission
so
is
well
really to
said.
just be
Yeah.
ourselves.
Exactly. That's it. Be yourself. And I will say, there over the years have been some people that are like, you talk too much about the divine. I love all the physical body stuff you do, but I'm not into that. And I'm like, well, you probably shouldn't come to yoga then, because that's what yoga is about, and I don't mean it in a judgmental way, but it's just like you can make a statement for yourself and for your community what yoga is for you. Like, I'm very clear. I didn't used to be, because I was like in the closet with my spirituality in a way, because I'm in love with God, the Divine Mother. Like, I'm so just here to serve. But over the years and getting older also, it just was like, listen, all the things that we do, all the practices that we practice are here to help us know the self, merge with divine consciousness, and serve. Like, so I would be very clear about it, and I would just weave it in. I might say, right now, you're bringing your awareness to your pelvic floor, but it's not like an exercise. It's not like I'm going to, like you were saying, it's not a Kegel here. We're not like, or sometimes I would do that. I'd say, let's get really physical for a moment. Feel what it feels like to hold a bowel movement in, and then let it go. And then feels what it feels like to, and you can do this with me right now. Feel what it feels like to hold in a stream of urine, and then let it go. And I'll often make a joke, like, you're in the car and you have to poop and it's not the time to go. Feel what it feels like to hold in. And then I'll say, now wipe all of that clean and bring your awareness to your perineum, where there's a diamond, where literally there's a diamond because these different muscles meet. And imagine Mula Bandha as a goddess, like an aspect of the Divine Mother, that your pelvic floor is an aspect of the Divine Mother. And you bow to her and you honor her, and she rises. And there's no effort in Mula Bandha, because when we bow to something with devotion and reverence, they rise, like, so you can weave it in everything you offer, because you love it. And if you love it and it's alive in your heart, it comes out.
And it's like hearing someone speak their authentic truth that enlivens our own authentic truth up for us, because maybe the way, of course, like the way that each one of us is going to teach something is going to be a reflection of who we are and where we've been and what we're embodying. So, Corinne's way of explaining things is hers. And so we all have the ability, and truth, like when we go on that journey of like you went on that journey of finding your voice, of coming out of a place of learning, which was also beautiful. Like you get to be in that closet and like figuring it out and like in the dark trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then at some point we're freed up and we know exactly who we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
And that's not over
so
either.
great.
I'm still on that journey, right? Where like until I'm fully 100% never leaving the depth of my soul, I'm still on we all are, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, you will find, and I will say after years of training people, again, in the 200, 300 hour and the prenatal and postnatal 90 hour, I am blown away when I watch people become themselves, like through learning and practicing teaching. Everybody is their own beautiful, unique self, and it just comes through. You know, and if you're a birth doula, you'll have your special, like, I've learned so much from I was only a birth doula for a little while. I couldn't handle being on call at night after like 5 births. I was like, I'm done. Not the best thing for people who have high vata, you know? Um, so everyone's unique beauty comes out. And I am so blessed to like watch it, you know, as each person teaches.
It's very humbling.
It's so humbling.
And it's so, I think that it creates a wisdom in us that, you know, when you put yourself out there to connect with people, to offer love and compassion to people, to witness people on this spectrum,
Yeah.
I feel like it's made me such a better, more conscious person
Yeah.
because I can relate. I
Yeah.
can see, I've learned
Yeah.
this new experience that, you know, was different in these ways from my own. It
Exactly.
creates like a universal type of presence within myself.
Yeah.
And certainly I feel that healing energy that happens when people are together and they're seen and they're given the assurance that you're not alone.
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone wants to belong, you know, and especially when you're so vulnerable in these childbearing years. It's such a vulnerable time. You want to belong. You want to know you're held and loved. It's kind of all it comes down to.
Yeah, truly.
So
Truly.
yeah.
Okay, so we have a little bit of time before
Oh.
we do.
I just saw the wow.
Oh,
Thank you, Ashley, for sharing
I just
that.
had a deep connection from Mula Bandha to my heart by imagining the goddess. Oh, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
isn't that amazing? I mean, everything is the goddess. That's the other thing. Like, no joke. I mean, how do you think creation came into creation? Mahashakti, she breathed it into existence. So you look around, there's so much to worship.
If there are any other questions specifically about you know, anything that's come up for you today, please raise your hand and we will do a little closing together. But ultimately, to be, you know, really clear, this is an ongoing collaboration with us in the next 3 months as we, you know, for those of you who are going to be listening to this later as a recording, that's okay. You just reach out. We'll make sure that you get the education and the opportunity that you need. But this is a super special time. I feel like leading into the beginning of a new year, we're combining the opportunity for students coming in to also benefit from your beautiful program. And also our incredible alumni have the opportunity, and current students have the ability to also participate in this. But Corinne's work is just so much in alignment with what we're doing here at Sacred Window Studies. So it feels like a true sisterhood. And if I can perpetuate anything in this world, it's that we are all in collaboration with each other. We're all lifting each other up. We're all widening out to look at conscious care to be not just those first 6 weeks. This is, you know, this is like the long haul.
Yeah.
And what we do,
Postpartum for life.
what we do at any point informs how we experience the next phase and the next phase and the next phase.
Yeah.
And you know, I can feel a lot of concern, and there's so much conversation in our communities about not just sustainability. I think that was kind of my go-to word for so long about, we've got to have sustainable businesses. No, I don't want it just to be sustainable. I want it to be like paradigm shifting. I want it to be
Oh, I got the
nourishing.
chills.
I want it to be frank, like, the last few weeks with everything that's
Yeah.
going on in our country,
Yes.
coming to this work every day has been literal medicine.
Yeah.
It's been so nourishing to be able to be in connection with all of you guys and in this wider community where people are putting human care and love above, any of these surface level things, which are, we all have to navigate. So,
Yeah.
creating practices that work for people and that are medicine for you as the caregivers is really important. And so this beautiful opportunity and it's also with prenatal yoga, with this whole path of practice, it's not just for the students, it's just as much for you and for us, because we can't help but embody this authentic medicine as we do it. And those of you who have come to study with us in person, and even those of you who have not, but who are in our programs, that embodiment of what we're offering is just as important as learning the specifics to give to another. It's this give and take. And in this way, we create effective healing. Yeah. Essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is just with what you were saying, of the times we're in politically and whatever's to come. I've been saying to the Shraddha Yoga community, which is the current rendition of what I'm running, now is the time more than ever. All of the practices, all of the teachings, all of the philosophies that we know and love, we have to like level up our embodiment of them, and like no more whatever we were doing like part-time as far as believing in what we believe in. We have to like we just have to like level it up to the next place, because we need it on earth right now so deeply. So
thank you for everything that you bring to this world. I feel so lucky that I live nearby to you. And for those of you who are inclined to come out to Western Mass to study with us, we'll make sure that Corinne is there this summer. At least for part of the time.
Oh, I want to be. I'm coming for the whole. No, probably not the whole thing, but I loved it. Yeah. Some of you who are on were at the Montague Retreat Center, and it was. I think I told you this, but if you haven't taken, well, you've only done it. That was the first one there, right?
The second one, yeah.
The second one in general.
Oh,
but
yeah,
the first one there. If you have yet to attend the live retreat, I will tell you, for the I think 2 or 3 months after it, and I wasn't even there the whole time, all I could teach about, because all I was feeling was nourishment, like every level of nourishment, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, but nourishment. All the classes I was teaching, because I felt so nourished and juiced up, it was everybody was like, wow, Corinne, you're really like on this nourishment kick. What happened to you? I was like, I just spent a few days with these amazing women in the Montague Retreat Center. So
there's something very magical that happens when people get together with the intention that people are going to feel cared for. And that's what you're teaching, beautiful. Corinne. That is what you're teaching here.
We're holding it. So
we are. Yeah. Well, so in follow-up, I am going to make sure that you have and these resources that Corinne has put together are gorgeous. So I'm going to make sure that you all have access to those, as well as to the recording. And yeah, Rebecca, we're happy to get creative with you, and thank you all for just being here to witness us have this like special moment together.
Yeah, I know. We're like, oh my gosh, we're in person doing this.
I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day. So grateful for your presence, and I will follow up with each of you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Shanti, Shanti.
The Sacred Window podcast is brought to you by the Center for Sacred Window Studies. You can visit us to find out more about our online training and mentoring programs, plus resources and products for and about the Sacred Postpartum Window at www.sacredwindowstudies.com. And our music is written and performed by Sarah Emmett. You can hear more of Sarah's music by visiting www.sarahemmett.bandcamp.com.